So there is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and I have been kind of passively following this story over the last year and had heard different things about it. And eventually I wanted to give my opinion on it and kind of been sitting on it as a topic for a while, but finally wanted to, save it for a rainy day. And what I want to talk about today is the attack on free speech in the United Kingdom. And some of this has been highlighted. You might have seen stories surrounding this topic when it comes to J.K. Rowling, and we will get to her in a minute. So you might have seen a couple things about it, but I just wanted to expand on it a little bit more and give my thoughts and opinions and try to see what's really going on. So, first, I wanted to start out by reading an article from the New York Times. This is from August of this year. And it's an article, New York Times article by Chadwick Moore. And it initially starts off by giving us the details of a story where this woman found herself in jail because of something that she said online. And her name was is Bernadette Spoforth. And the article picks up and says she'd end up being detained for 36 hours in July 2024. Three girls had just been murdered in Southport, England, at a Taylor Swift themed dance party, but Spoforth was not under suspicion for the crime. Instead, horrified and in the fog of a developing tragedy, she reposted on X another user's content blaming newly arrived immigrants for the ghastly crime, clarifying in her retweet if this is true. Hours later, she realized she may have received bad information and deleted the post. They had already been seen thousands of times. The murders resulted in widespread civil unrest in the UK, where mass migration is a central issue for citizens. Four police vehicles arrived at her home days later. Spoforth, 56, a successful businesswoman from Chester, was placed under arrest. We're a year on now, and I can honestly tell you that I don't think I will ever recover, she told the Post. I don't mean that as a victim. Those poor children were victims, but I will never trust anything the authorities say to me ever again. Her story is one repeated almost hourly in the UK, where data suggests over 30 people a day are arrested for free speech are arrested for speech crimes, about 12,000 a year, under laws written well before the age of social media that makes crimes of sending grossly offensive messages or sharing content of an incident, obscene, or menacing character. Indecent, obscene, or menacing character. Social media continues to be flooded with videos of British cops banging on doors in the middle of the night and hauling parents off to jail, all over mean Facebook posts and agitated words on X. Maxie Allen, a radio producer in Hertfordshire, was on a Zoom call at home when she saw police standing over his shoulder from the camera view on his screen. Six officers came knocking. His partner, Rosalind Levine, who answered the door, thought their disabled daughter had died. They showed up to haul the couple off over comments they posted in a private WhatsApp group for parents at their children's school. In the chat, the couple had repeatedly had been repeatedly critical of the public school's slow pace to recruit a replacement head teacher. It's shaken the faith of the country I thought I lived in. I never imagined that just by airing your views about how an organization was run, trying to hold people to account in public office, that you would get arrested for that, Allen, 50, told the Post. If you have a vague law and then it's enforced to an officious and stupid degree, then it's always going to end in tears. Similar stories abound in 2008. Similar stories abound in 2018. A man identifying himself as Adam phoned into the British talk show radio station LBC to describe his encounter with police earlier that year. He said, "I'm Asian myself and did this drawing of a mate of mine who's also Asian. And I said, 'You look like a terrorist.' And he took it really well. He thought it was funny. He told the host. But someone else saw the humorous doodle, took issue, and called the police. Months later, Adam and his friend were interviewed by authorities. The friend told cops he laughed at the drawing and wasn't offended, but police still made an official report for a non crime hate incident and forced Adam to write a letter of apology to his friend, which he had to email to him. And then the rest of the article goes on to speak about a number of other instances where similar things have happened. Somebody has said something that was deemed inappropriate or offensive, and then them getting hauled off to jail or getting in trouble by the authorities. And this is obviously concerning for a number of different reasons, and we're going to go through those reasons here. One thing that you have to consider is that, especially with the expectations for you as an individual to accept certain things, and when we're talking about the left, I feel like the left likes to move the goalpost a lot. The left likes to move the goalpost in what we have to accept from the LGBTQ community, from transgenderism, what we think about men and women, and all these. The goalpost just always seems to be moving. And the problem is that the things that we would get in trouble for, and I know this is not happening in the United States, but the things, if they escalated, the things that people are going to get in trouble for are going to become, if we were in a similar situation, like if you're put in a situation where you're getting arrested for posting things or saying things or writing offensive comics or something like that, then the level of how offensive it is going to continue to get lower and lower. And people are just going to take offense to everything. The goalpost will keep moving. People will keep getting softer. What you actually have to say or do or write is going to become more and more harmless, but people are just going to keep on getting more and more offended. And so you have this moving goalpost where it just seems like you can never say anything softly enough. You can never be too politically correct. That's the thing. I think people get into this trap where when it comes to being politically correct and some more traditional views and values, and Bill Maher talks about this on his show. Bill Maher considers himself to be one of the OG liberals, right? He's one of the OG liberals. This dude, I don't know how old he is. He's been around for a while. He's been in media for a while. And so he hasn't, he said this, and I'm paraphrasing, but he hasn't changed. But it's the liberals of 2025. It's the left wing people. It's the leftists of 2025. They just keep on becoming more extreme and keep on moving the goalpost and keep on expecting us more and more and more to capitulate to what they want to do. And his stances haven't changed. And that's why he is willing to criticize. He's willing to criticize the right, but he's also willing to criticize the left for their stupidity. But we play this game of keep on moving the goalpost. And if we were in a similar situation, and it could be the case in the UK as well, where more the tamer you will have to keep on saying and posting tamer and tamer content because somebody is always going to be offended. Like, just imagine trying to keep track of all that. It would be impossible. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it opens the door for a lot of false accusations. And so you think about some of the things that you see in America, think about some of the things that we have to deal with in America, where a woman can falsely accuse a man of sexual assault. And you think about all the things that happen to the man, like he's under the spotlight, his career could be destroyed, his life could be destroyed, and that causes a lot of problems for him. But in this situation, what they're dealing with in the UK, it opens up the door where you can just falsely accuse somebody, you're not accusing them of sexual assault. You're not accusing them of murder. You're not accusing them of doing a violent crime. You could simply just say, "Yeah, he showed me something inappropriate, or he showed me something that wasn't politically correct, and I took offense to that, and so you really need to investigate him." Just think about how easy it could be. Somebody rubs you the wrong way, somebody makes you angry, somebody says something you don't like. It could be completely unrelated to the so-called offensive thing you're accusing them of. But you could just wake up one day, "Yeah, that guy, I've never really liked that guy. Guess what? He wrote me an inappropriate joke. He sent me something, he sent me a post that was a little bit racist. It was supposed to be a joke, but it was a little bit racist, and so now that guy's in trouble. Now the cops show up at his door." And just what kind of gymnastics have they opened the door for in their country? It's just pure insanity. And this is somewhat of a separate issue, but I think they are intertwined, is I don't think it's any surprise. You look at the UK's stance on guns and the various different things they've done in terms of gun control, and now look at where they are at. Okay, the Second Amendment, we abide by the Second Amendment. We are allowed to own firearms for recreation, but really what the Second Amendment is there for is to defend ourselves and our property and our homes and our families, and then also defend ourselves from tyrannical government. And so I kind of think that the police banging down your door over every little thing that you say, we're kind of getting into the realm of tyranny, aren't we? And I haven't done a ton of research on this, but from what I can tell, the research that I have done, the last major piece of gun control that was passed in the UK was in 1997. And if you go back and you look at the history of different moves that they've made for gun control, it wasn't just that. It wasn't just in 1997. It's been different bills passed, different things done in terms of writing laws over the span of many years. And so, but the last major one was in 1997. Okay. So we're like almost 30 years removed from that at this point. And now we're getting to the point where people don't have any way to defend themselves. And now there's being arrested over foolishness. And it goes back to having the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment is there to protect all the other rights, all the other amendments, all the other things that we enjoy. Ultimately, you have to acknowledge that it all goes back to whether or not we can defend ourselves. And I think it's very sad that the UK has come to this point. But if there is one useful thing that you can glean out of the situation, it's that whatever happens in the UK, I think that's what is in store for America if we follow a similar trend. And I don't think it's going to take 30 years. If we just 2026, we banned all guns, and we wouldn't have to wait almost 30 years either. I'd say whatever is happening in the UK now is probably 5 to 10 years down the road for America if we give up our guns. What they're doing in the UK, the things that they're arresting people over, the things they are, they're beating on the doors of people who are having private conversations, and that is not that far down the road if we give up our guns. I'm just saying. I'm just telling you. You can say it's a theory or whatever. I'm just saying it's not going to take 30 years. America, in terms of the political correct state of mind that America is in, we are primed. We are primed for something like that to happen if our guns are taken away. And also, you look at these police officers. I think a lot of these guys, a lot of these police officers, when they join the force, they probably never imagined themselves doing this stuff. Some of them probably never anticipated that this is what they would be required to do for their job. And you would like to give police officers in America the benefit of the doubt, especially with conservatives. I mean, conservatives come out and, we're not defund the police. We're not into get rid of all the police. We're not into all of that. And so you would like to think that there's some optimism about how police officers would respond to these kinds of situations. But look at all these people. Look at all these law enforcement officers that are out there. They just bow down to it. Oh, I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my benefits. I guess I'll just go arrest this random person for something random they said on social media. I mean, it's just pathetic. It's just pathetic. And you hate to think that. I'm sure a lot of people have no other people that are police officers or have family that's police officers, and you don't want to think negatively of them. But we can see that there's other parts of the world where they're in law enforcement and they're police officers. They are willing to bow down to this nonsense and they are willing to do anything to keep their jobs. If even if that includes arresting people over harmless, relatively harmless things, not even violence, just words, just posts. And and that has to be really scary. That has to be very scary. Again, you hate to see this take place, but it serves as a warning for us in America. Like, you don't think this can happen here? You don't think that can take place here in America? And think about it this way. Like I said, America is primed with our state of mind and being politically correct. People are obsessed with being politically correct. People are obsessed with canceling people over stuff like that. Like they're not being jailed for posting stuff, but you definitely see a lot of people trying to cancel other people for posting certain things and saying certain things. This is on the table. This is on the table. If our guns get taken away and things continue the way that they're going, this is on the table. What's happening in the UK is, I don't think it's that hard to imagine a scenario where that happens in America. And think about it this way. You have people in America currently, not even just cancel culture, there are people out there who are celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk because of the things that he said. Never hurt anybody, okay? Wasn't out here trying to just destroy people, physically harm people. He wasn't out here just trying to be a jerk at every turn or anything like that. They are celebrating his death. They are celebrating the fact that he was killed for his beliefs and his opinions. Do you think these people are above trying to throw us in prison for our opinions? Do you think these, if they're celebrating the death of somebody for their opinions, they're certainly willing to throw us in jail. They're certainly willing to throw us in prison for our viewpoints, for our opinions. And and I think you have to be a little bit naive to not acknowledge that there are people like that out there. Not only are there governments out there that are taking away the guns of their citizens, they are taking away their freedom of speech, and then they're taking away their physical freedom by throwing them in jail for reposting questionable things, even seemingly harmless things in on social media or showing their buddies a funny drawing or something like that is insane. It's insane. And I mentioned J.K. Rowling at the beginning, and she has come under fire over in recent years, and I've talked about it before because she has been outspoken over this transgender nonsense. And it just so happens that J.K. Rowling lives in Scotland, which is part of the UK. And it really makes me, it's like, can they really? She hasn't she hasn't been arrested yet. Like to my knowledge, like she hasn't been arrested. And to my knowledge, she hasn't had to pay fines or anything like that. But can you really you have to think about it like this. Can you really, jail J.K. Rowling? Do you really think they can get rid of that? Because she's a high profile individual. She's one of the most successful women in the world. Can't really go out of your way to arrest her, even though that's technically what would be fair based upon the way that they're applying their rules and their laws. But you can't really throw J.K. Rowling in jail. But for the rest of us, like for the peasants, the people that the normal, average, everyday people, man, they are just getting screwed, man. They are in some really deep trouble over there. And I do say all of this again. I say all of this in concern for their country. Like you hate to see a country stoop to these kinds of levels and governments stoop to these kinds of levels, but it's also a warning to us in America. And the obsession with being politically correct, the push to get rid of our guns. I think what's happening in UK is a part of America's future if these things continue. They take away our guns, they want to be politically correct. It'll happen to us. And it'll happen to us, I think, a lot faster than it happened to the UK.